As someone who has interest in learning multiple languages, one question I get pretty often on this channel is, Emma, how do you learn multiple languages at the same time? And the answer is, I don't. I rotate between them rather than learning them simultaneously. At any one time, you will find me learning one active language at most, so think textbooks, shadowing drills, working with the tutor, etc. And then maybe one passive language on the side if we're feeling like it. So that means consuming content on YouTube, reading children's books, and even then, there needs to be a substantial gap in level between the two languages I'm learning. I don't know about you, but I've never been able to study two active languages at the same time effectively nor consistently. I feel like my focus is scattered. I'm constantly rushing between the two, never being able to dedicate enough time nor attention to either one of them, and thus seeing lesser progress in both. But this is just my secondary concern. My primary concern, however, is that whenever I've attempted this, I've realized that I get so wrapped up in my two target languages that I no longer make time to read, think, or feel deeply in languages that I am already fluent in. It's all fun and games until you realize that you have learned about furniture 5 times. 5 times! Tables, chairs, beds, you get the idea. That's 5 times the amount of time a regular person should be spending thinking about furniture. Save for industrial designers and the likes, but I digress. That is 5 times the amount of time that could be used instead to 1. Let my brain shut off and sit in peace, or 2. Contemplate about the myriad of things that underlie the mechanisms of life. Think in your target language, they say. Journal in your target language, they say. But the truth is, I can't seem to bring myself to think in my target language in my free time. Frankly, it's just much slower and lacks depth compared to thinking and feeling in my fluent languages. Exhibit A, journaling. I have a satisfactory command of the French language thanks to the multiple similarities it shares with English. In French, I could journal about my daily life, maybe draw connections between a few thoughts here and there if I'm feeling adventurous, but seeing as journaling is my main outlet of processing my thoughts and feelings, doing so in a language that I wasn't well versed in meant that while the words were written, yes, none of the mental or emotional processing I needed got done. So after 2 or so weeks of mediocre journaling, I switched back to my trusty Vietnamese and English writing combo. Now, trains of thought started to make sense again. Patterns were recognized, problems were solved, bada bing, bada boom. Now let's take that a step further and humor me, guys. If I were to journal in Chinese, my thoughts would have the depth of a toddler's, if even. I'm not saying that toddlers can't feel deeply due to their limited vocabulary. I'm just saying that even if they did, their limited vocabulary hinders them from expressing themselves fully and precisely. I mean, how many times have you seen a child cry with no way of knowing for sure what they want, what it is that they're trying to communicate with the world? But Emma, what about you learning English? Okay, you have a point. The only exception to it all would be English. I learned English from the ages of 5 through 7 in an English-speaking environment, and back then, the thoughts that occupied my waking hours were quite simple. They revolved around my school and classmates, my family, the playground behind our backyard, the library, and after-school snacks. Thinking in English back then did not hinder my thoughts. The English language became the primary tool with which I continued to evolve and expand my mind. Reading the right books and engaging with the right content gives you vocabulary of higher precision, so that you can more accurately relay and communicate whatever it is that is going on inside of your being. And of course, words are just one of the ways with which you can feel, and sometimes there are experiences so grand that no amount of descriptive words would do it justice. Take the adage, a picture is worth 1,000 words. I mean, imagine handing in a picture instead of a 1,000-word essay in college. Groundbreaking, I know. What I'm trying to say is, words are not the only way to experience life, but I find that it is a way in which you can add more meaning and sense to life. And in that sense, learning languages helps you expand that toolkit. There are words in one language that exist best in that particular language. It conveys a certain essence, a certain nuance, with no direct translation into any other language that could possibly encapsulate the original word quite as perfectly. And in that way, learning languages allows you access to nuances in expression that you otherwise would not have in the languages that you already know. To see which language you feel most deeply in, try this simple exercise. Pick a meaningful or emotionally charged phrase, such as, I love you. Now say that to yourself in your mother tongue. And then again in all the other languages that you know. Which one hits the hardest? Which one seems the most nonchalant? For me, without a doubt, I love you hits the hardest in Vietnamese. Mẹ yêu con, em yêu anh. Culturally, we don't even say this nearly as often as we do in English, and that could be a topic for a whole nother video. I love you or love you in English feels more laid back, more carefree, and I'm comfortable saying that more generously to my friends and people that I'm close with. 我爱你 in Mandarin, frankly, feels like just another day of being tutored Chinese. And seeing as I don't speak Spanish, te amo or te quiero bounces right off of me the same way a ping pong ball bounces off a ping pong table. And that is instantaneously and leaving little to no impression upon impact. Sometimes I feel like I can express myself most fully in English, but when I do this exercise, I can once again confirm that I am indeed very much truly Vietnamese at my core. Because to me, I love you hits the hardest in Vietnamese. Okay, now back to learning two languages. I know, whether I like it or not, I have to move through this intermediate stage in my languages to get to a point where I can express myself more freely. Still, I probably won't be forcing myself to think or write in my target languages more than what my daily life requires of me. I prioritize communication and self-expression, and in the grand scheme of things, I already have the languages I need most to do that. I have Vietnamese to communicate with my family and my local community where I live, and I have English to connect with my international friends, as well as reach a global audience. As for the other target languages that I rotate between, as long as I can get my point across and understand what's being said back to me, aka basic communication, I think I'll be aight. And what about you? What has been your experiences studying two languages at the same time? How do you allocate enough time to both without having to resort to multitasking? I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Anyways, that is all for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys have a wonderful week, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!